Have you ever wanted to start a podcast but don't know where to begin? Do you think you're the funniest friend in your friend group and want the whole world to know? Or maybe you know that your thoughts and opinions are deeply profound and worth sharing with the internet? Well, what if I told you that they're not? You're not funny and no one cares about what you think. But that's okay, because none of that actually matters. Hi, I'm Mike Lapel, professional podcast coach and manager, here to guarantee you a successful podcast because not only do I know the secret, but you can too. What is that secret? Well, your guest, of course, but not just any guest. We're talking about the evil ones. Specifically, the guests with some sort of power and evil political agenda. Why? Because these are the guests with money to spend and resources to give. Now you might be saying to yourself, Mike, I know many a fascist, but how do I get many a fascist to know me? Well, that's where I come in. You see, my specialty within the podcasting industry is connecting you with the richest, evilest, and most powerful politicians and businessmen worldwide. Benjamin Netanyahu on the Nelk Boys pod? Yeah, that was me. Donald Trump on the Flagrant pod? Me again. Who do you think got Joe Rogan into the Oval Office? Your only job? An easy ask. Let these people take advantage of you and your platform. Your voice and credibility will be stripped, but your pockets will be lined. Morality is subjective. Money is not. Podcasting. Many have claimed it to be an easy job, while other, less intelligent, and probably difficult people to be around, have described it as harder than a 9-to-5. Well, I argue, if podcasting is so easy, then how are so many people fucking it up? For years now, one of the most popular mediums of the past decade has been quietly turned into a propaganda tool, spreading misinformation and swaying elections. Again, if podcasting is so easy, how are we getting it wrong? Podcasting is just a monetizable conversation. In the world of content creation, this is the easiest form. Well, actually, I think that we're letting comedians get away with too much, I think that's what the problem is. I mean, the podcast format in itself is a perfect vessel for political propaganda. Its chill, low-stake conversational vibe is exactly what's needed to casually spread disinformation. But I think that comedians are the perfect pundits to spew it. I mean, think about it. There are specified political podcasts out there, but none of them are as relatable as a comic, as someone who is trained to resonate with you. Their unbiased, unserious, and frankly stupid approach to anything politically related or of substance makes it all the more easy for political rhetoric to connect with the masses. Podcasts already simulate the feeling of inclusion in social spaces, being included in conversations. If I don't have friends, tuning into a podcast helps me feel like I do. But that's the thing. I don't want to be friends with Benjamin Netanyahu. I don't want to be friends with Donald Trump. I'd rather just accept the fact that I have no friends than cope by listening to a podcast that is trying to humanize different disguises of the same Antichrist. However, this experience was different for a lot of other people. Hosting demons like this in a chill, low-stakes conversational environment can only have the wrong kind of influence. But thankfully, it seems like we're nearing the end of a terminally right-wing online. And with what seems to be a political and cultural shift post-Trump election, a lot of these podcast hosts and comedians are regretting their decisions to become shills for a political machine. And while they're slowly backing away, there is a refusal to take any accountability or own up to the effects their actions have caused. I mean, good for them for coming back to the light, I guess, but you can't just pretend like that didn't happen. Today we're talking about podcasters and accountability, or the lack of it, rather, and social media's seemingly growing influence on all things politics and power. We've seen the treacherous effects that this influence has on people. If there's no accountability, how can we learn from our mistakes to ensure that things like this don't happen again? That we don't mind-numbingly host our fascistic president on a podcast to help him win an upcoming election. Or billionaires and tech CEOs who do indeed have special interests and certainly don't need audiences to be on their side. This type of mainstream propaganda doesn't just benefit politicians. It gives leverage to the corporations and industries behind them. Big tech, big oil. The same well-oiled machine that helps to swing an election is the same one shielding oil companies from consequences. Industries that use public broadcasting to spread their messaging and protect their interests. It's entities like big oil who continue to deceive the public, all while endlessly harming our climate. But more on this later. First, I want to take a look at the different ways a few of these podcasters have begun to backtrack on their association with the Trump admin and analyze the difference in accountability, righting wrongs, and if really any of them deserve to be forgiven. The first podcaster to commit podcast malpractice or modern-day skullduggery is our very own Andrew Schulz. Stand-up comic and host of the Flagrant podcast, Andrew Schulz has been in the podcast game for quite some time now. Both he and now ex-co-host Akash Singh, that's a video for a different time, started the pod as a sports broadcast show that was never meant to be explicitly political by any means. However, fast forward a few years to the cancel culture era, a time I like to call the Great Woke, and the motives of the podcast seemed to shift. Flagrant then found its footing very well within the podcast space as a show that fought against PC and woke culture.
In a time where it was literally the most political correctness in history, we carved out a lane of flagrancy that did not exist anywhere else.
Really, this was just a podcast with a couple of comedians that felt that their humor was being boxed in by society and wanted a way to still speak their minds without being ostracized, hence beginning to associate with right-wing adjacent talking points. This evolved over time as a group of politically unbiased comedians were becoming more and more involved with politics, up until finally hosting Donald Trump on one of their episodes.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Flagrant. And today, this is the first time that we've been able to say is we are sitting down with Mr. President. Mr. President, thank you so much for being here.
The description of this video really sets the stage for the core issues of comedians involving themselves with politics. We got Trump on the pod today to break down his stance on abortion, who he really thinks tried to take him out, and his favorite African American. This might be Trump's longest interview ever. A classic for sure. And a classic it was. At an hour and a half with almost 10 million views, this episode helped to elect the asshole.
This group influenced the presidential election of 2024.
Yo, listen.
Ain't that fucking crazy?
Don't even say influence. We decided.
We were the turning point.
These are not political experts or journalists by any means. These are comedians who felt persecuted enough to weigh in. Except these are not everyday working class people affected by propaganda. These are people who hold more influence than we can even comprehend. So when they're influenced by rhetoric or power, it's infinitely worse. There is no critical thought or pushback whatsoever. This episode was just straight up propaganda for Trump while he was running for his second term.
That was the best dodge of a question.
You know what I mean?
You almost charmed us out of it.
Trying to get at it.
Trump, you're so fucking funny. Guys, look at how personable this evil man is. I'm not saying you should vote for him, but I'm not saying you shouldn't either. Andrew Schulz is a grifter. He's an opportunistic scumbag that does stuff like perform at the Riyadh Comedy Festival. But hey, I guess the Saudi blood money is still money. And of course, he's going to chop it up with the president given the opportunity. But if you're a grifter, that also means when cultural tides shift, you shift too. And since Trump's second term, he hasn't been all that favorable. So what does Schulz do? He blames both sides. After Charlie Kirk's assassination, Andrew Schulz took to YouTube to address how the left are hypocritical for celebrating the death and the right are hypocritical for pulling Jimmy Kimmel's show because of a joke.
And that gets into this conversation. Last week, Charlie Kirk's tragic death exposed that our political values have eroded faster than Kash Patel's interest in the Epstein list. The discourse between right and left is officially just beat the other side.
Worry not, America. Andrew Schulz, the great mediator, is here. Andrew Schulz, famous centrist known for his middle-of-the-road politics, is here to ensure us that both sides are bad. Thanks, Andrew. That makes me feel so much better. This is my problem. Andrew Schulz has no business being involved with politics, but continues to make it his business to be involved with politics. And it's gotten to a point where he's in too deep. After you do a podcast with the president, you can't not do politics anymore. You've essentially cemented yourself as the guys that know nothing about politics who cover politics. When ICE murdered Alex Preddy, the Flagrant podcast condemned it.
Nobody's watching this and be like, this is right, this is the America I want to live in.
Unloading a clip on a U.S. citizen is wrong.
Cool, awesome. Thank you for standing up for what's right. Except, no, this opinion holds zero weight because you helped to elect the administration responsible for this in the first place. Andrew Schulz and the Flagrant podcast failed to see the flaws and dangers of the Trump administration and instead saw it as an opportunity to selfishly grow their platforms and careers. Everyone can tell that Andrew Schulz regrets supporting Donald Trump. However, by not addressing that and holding yourself accountable, you're continuing to prove to the public how illegitimate any important or serious opinion you have is. During Schultz's Both Sides Bad video, he literally can't help but sprinkle in the most unfunny and eye-rolling one-liners throughout it because he's a comedian, and even though he's talking about people dying and how we shouldn't make fun of that, he's gonna make fun of whoever he wants because he's a comedian.
Many of them celebrated, like Charlie Sheen on World AIDS Day, and that's just about as fascist as Putin's pierogies, which is not only food, it's what he calls his housekeepers. Jimmy Kimmel, who, for anyone under 50, is a late-night TV host, and for anyone under 40, late-night TV is how the pharmaceutical industry gets your uncle hooked on opioids, and for anyone under 30, 30, TV is like TikTok, but your phone is sideways and not controlled by Bamboo Babe Ruth.
Well, just because you're a comedian doesn't mean that you can't be funny. Maybe instead of talking about politics, we can work on our tight five a little more, Andrew. Because this is some of the worst 5 minutes I've ever heard. Speaking of bad comedy, the next podcaster we're talking about is Joe Rogan. Joe needs no introduction. The Joe Rogan Experience is one of the most popular podcasts in America, and it's paved the way for some of the worst red flags a man can have. Asking, what's your favorite podcast? On a first date became the standard for women trying to avoid the worst kind of man. Like the Flagrant podcast, the Joe Rogan Experience followed the same anti-woke conservatism trends that put it in the position it is in now.
It's all woke. It's all woke culture. It's this culture of compliance. They want you to comply.
Which, while Joe Rogan wants to keep up the illusion that he's a centrist and unbiased politically, he is still very much at the behest of the Trump administration.
I'm politically homeless. I've always been I've been politically homeless for a long fucking time.
Okay, Joe, if you're so politically unhoused, then what's that roof over your head?
Thanks to all these people that we see next to me, and thanks to President Trump.
Oh, it's the roof of the Oval Office? The most political roof you could be under. Okay. Literally 10 days after this clip of Joe Rogan aired, he was invited to the Oval Office to answer questions about Trump's executive order to loosen up the laws around psychedelic drugs. While this is a very Joe Rogan reason to be present, it doesn't change the fact that he's directly contradicting himself. I mean, again, Trump is probably in that office in the first place, largely in part because of the interview they did before the 2024 election. And just like Andrew Schulz, this episode of Joe Rogan's podcast offered little to no pushback whatsoever, garnering over 62 million views just on YouTube.
Probably would have been if the media didn't attack you the way they did. If they didn't conflate you with Hitler. I mean, even today, like, Kamala was talking about you and Hitler. They're going to take what you said about Robert E. Lee. Oh, Donald Trump wishes the South won.
That's right. He loves Robert E. Lee.
They love to take things out of context and distort things.
Joe Rogan has built a career off of politics, hosting numerous politicians, conspiracy theorists, and political pundits alike. And while sure, he's had on a few liberal or left-leaning guests, the majority of them have trended right. So to act like he's politically unbiased is so fucking funny. But really, I think it's a larger cry for help. Because, like Schulz, Rogan is having some regrets and beginning to question a little bit of the Trump administration's decisions during this term, saying he felt betrayed over the decision to go to war with Iran.
Which just seems so insane based on what he ran on. I mean, this is why a lot of people feel betrayed, right?
Comparing ICE with the Gestapo.
Just roaming around, snatching people up, many of which turn out to actually be U.S. citizens that just don't have their papers on them. Are we really going to be the Gestapo? Where's your papers?
And even just straight up calling the Trump admin a bunch of dorks.
Make America great again, and then it becomes a movement of a bunch of fucking dorks? Because a lot of them are dorks.
But again, you endorsed this. I mean, isn't it crazy how bad Trump has to be as a president for his podcast cronies to publicly question his administration? They even have Joe Rogan ranting about how high gas prices are.
Gas is $7.90 a gallon in LA right now.
And that's down from what it was. I was out there a month shooting a commercial, and it was up to $8.40 something.
Here's what I don't understand. Are we getting oil from Iran?
No! That's what...
Maybe 3 or 4% is from there.
So are they just fucking us in the ass?
Here's what I don't understand, Joe. How can you complain about gas prices when not only did you vote for and endorse the candidate that ran on lowering gas prices but didn't deliver, but you've also hosted several climate skeptics and conspiracy theorists who are knee-deep in the pockets of big oil onto your show, like Dr. Stephen Koonin, former chief scientist for BP and current climate skeptic who argues that data does not support the narrative of an imminent existential climate catastrophe. You think he wants gas prices to go down? Come on. Rogan often offers little pushback and allows rhetoric like this to freely enter the mainstream. Being able to spew disinformation like that on a platform like this is exactly what massive oil corporations need to thrive in broad daylight. And we need to be holding these corporations properly accountable for their continued public manipulation and environmental destruction. Make Polluters Pay is a campaign to hold fossil fuel companies accountable for the damage that they're causing to our climate and to our communities. These corporations have always known that their products were hurting human health and leading to climate change. And the work that Make Polluters Pay is trying to accomplish will help to put them in their place. Vermont and New York have already passed legislation that will make oil and gas companies pay for environmental and climate damages, but they're actively working to get more states on board. If you're interested in staying up to date and learning more about protecting our right to hold fossil fuel companies accountable, then follow Make Polluters Pay on Instagram and check out their website in the description. Next, I want to talk about Theo Von. While we're not done with Joe Rogan quite yet, I do want to bring in another podcaster to help us take a look at and analyze a difference in approaches to attempt accountability. While Rogan has shown skepticism and doubt towards the Trump administration and a few of their decisions, he has not done much to show that he has changed his overall opinion. Or at least he hasn't put in the work to legitimize his skepticism and true politically unhoused nature. While I don't think that Theo Von has nearly done enough work either, he's definitely been doing more than Rogan. Questioning opinions and actions or having on polarizing guests to genuinely try to intake both sides of the political spectrum. But before I explain myself, I want to give some background. Theo falls in line with the rest of these comedian podcasters that have grifted to the right. He frames himself as this working class American everyman who's just trying to understand the world. But he too has interviewed people like Donald Trump, J.D. Vance, has gotten lunch with Jared Kushner and Melania Trump. I mean, for someone that isn't politically aligned, he has associated very heavily with the American right wing. His podcast too gets millions of views and undoubtedly helped to determine the 2024 election. But how is what he's doing post-election different than Joe Rogan? Well, they actually answer this question for us during an episode of the Joe Rogan podcast where Theo is brought on as a guest. During this podcast episode, Theo repeatedly expresses how fucked the world is with the genocide in Gaza, Palantir technology and surveillance in Gaza, and I mean, Joe is the conspiracy guy, right? If Theo's gonna have a crazy rant about the government being evil, this should be the place to do it. But instead, Joe just straight up gaslights Theo into thinking he's batshit crazy.
It's a time where it's like Satan is amongst us and our religious leaders are fucking talking about bullshit at the poll. It's just like, what is going... I don't know, man.
We got to get you off those antidepressants, son. You're losing your fucking marbles.
You think I am?
Come hang out with us. Just chill out.
I'm here.
Which is such a crazy thing to do, considering that, one, again, this is the purpose of Joe's podcast, to be batshit crazy. And two, these are all real fucking problems that Theo is bringing up. These aren't the regular disinformation conspiracies that Joe is used to spewing on the pod. These are legitimate concerns. And anytime they do any research, Joe is the first to say, yeah, we can't really trust that source. It's biased.
Israeli government began using Palantir software in 2014. It significantly scaled up its partnership during the genocide in Gaza, which began in this is for sure a biased source, just by the way they phrase that.
Brother, you are literally the biased source king. What are we talking about? It's through this podcast episode that we can really see the difference in compromise between Theo Von and Joe Rogan. Sure, Theo can't really come back from the hit his public perception took after propping up right-wing pundits, but at least he's still trying to question the system and the people in power without fear of losing association with those people. Can't really say the same for Joe Rogan. Joe is so compromised that he'd rather try to convince his friend that he's going crazy than hear him out. Theo's hosted a doctor on his show who worked on the ground in Gaza. He's had on Bassem Youssef, a comedian who's been repeatedly outspoken about Palestine's liberation. I mean, this isn't nothing. There's still a lot that Theo needs to do if he's looking to redeem himself, but at least there's effort. Now, is this accountability? Can Theo be forgiven for his actions? No. Theo's done the most work, but that's not really saying a lot. And it doesn't excuse what's already been done. It's not like he's really apologized or verbally taken accountability for the people he's so clearly associated with, either out of fear of losing association or fear of what the optics could look like. So what does accountability look like for these podcasters? Well, unless they hold themselves accountable, there's really nothing that we can do. The damage that the podcasting industrial complex has had on our society is irreversible. Independent media that can be bought out, commodified, sold to the highest bidder. I mean, we're auctioning off, what, a good hang? But I don't think these comedians or anyone like them are going to take accountability. And honestly, that's expected. These are just people looking for the next cultural shift to latch onto. The only thing we can do now is just move on. Treat comedians like comedians and not take them seriously. Obviously, I'm not saying politics don't belong in comedy. I think the best stand-up is political, but there is a difference between speaking up for what's right through comedy and associating yourself with power because you want success. Hosting Trump on your podcast doesn't make you a better comedian. Cleverly formulating a joke that educates people on the genocide in Gaza while making them laugh not only makes you a better comedian, but it also makes you a better person. Thank you for watching. If you liked the video, consider subscribing, and if you want to help support the channel, then become a channel member. You'll get access to channel perks like new videos early and priority response to your comments. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time.